Chip today insisting that Bradford will be back. 2 wins in a row, 7 wins out of the last 9 with Bradford as the starter. 5 out of the last 7. And Bradford, solid yesterday, nothing spectacular. Are you still believing that Bradford won't be back here next year?
No, I don't believe he'll be back. After 2 wins, we sort of got the old Chip back and a little snarky, a little sarcastic, a little confident. And obviously you're in the middle of a race for the NFC East title. You're not going to insult your quarterback. But we've talked about this dating back months. Almost this is the worst-case scenario as far as moving forward when you look long-term. Not about this particular season because Sam Bradford has improved, but if you take a step back and take a more universal view of this franchise, it's clear he's not a fit for this offense. It's clear Chip Kelly's not going to change his offense to better fit the quarterback. So why do you want to spend significant amount of money on a guy who doesn't fit what you want to do? It just doesn't make sense from a personnel standpoint. And if you're successful, if you win the NFC East title, it's a lot more difficult to say we're going to start over again because this is not a market that likes rebuilding and certainly rebuilding with its football team. They want to believe they're relevant, and they're relevant right now.
John, and I agree with you. I think they're in a tough spot because what else is out there? How do they fix the position? I would assume the 2 ways that Bradford are gone are, 1, someone calls the Eagles with an offer they can't refuse, or 2, Bradford doesn't want to be here and he walks out on his own.
Yeah, well, I mean, remember, he's a free agent, so I would find it very hard to believe the Eagles are going to franchise, and they have that opportunity. That would give them another year at least to mull this over without a long-term deal. So they have that kind of control. But the big elephant in the room is Colin Kaepernick's probably going to be available. And that's a guy whose talent, whose skill set fits far better for what Chip Kelly wants to do. So that, to me, is going to be the most interesting aspect of this. Does he seize the moment and finally get a guy that has the skill set he wants, or does he look at Sam Bradford's improvement? Does he rest on the fact that he is improving, and the more time he does spend in this offense, he'll continue to improve? You could place the franchise tag on him. That's going to cost significant money, though, and I don't know if you want to tie that up in Sam Bradford. It's a difficult decision, but Chip put himself in this spot by trading for a guy who was on the last year of a deal, giving up a second-round pick on top of Nick Foles for him. So there's a lot of things that come into this to make the decision, and it's a very tough spot for Chip Kelly, the general manager. But he put himself in it. So right now it's about winning the NFC East, and right now to do that, he's got to buoy the confidence of his quarterback, and I think that's what he was trying to do today.
How do you think he played yesterday? 23 of 38, 247, touchdown pick. I mean, the numbers aren't jumping off the page, but does he add a steadiness? See, here's the hard part, John. Their defense was so bad in those losses. To say Sanchez is the reason they lost those games, I don't think it's fair. They just were so bad on defense, but the offense didn't hold up its end of the bargain, with Sanchez, but what has Bradford added in the games that, since he's been back?
Well, he's played clean games for the most part, and I thought before I came on, you brought up his one mistake, and it was a big one, and you're right, Johnny Jones kind of bailed him out of it. That was sort of a rookie-type error, not understanding the situation late in the game. But the Eagles were able to overcome it. Other than that, he played a very clean game. I think people have to understand that's all you can expect out of the quarterback right now. That's what you want out of the quarterback, because this receiving group is not going to be consistent enough throughout an entire game to put up big numbers. All you can hope for is what happened yesterday. Because there's not a ton of talent at that position, they're going to see a lot of single coverage, a lot of man-to-man, and you have to be able to take advantage of that at times. Aguilar did it with a big touchdown. They almost got another one inside the 10-yard line to Riley Cooper, but he dropped the football. But then you counteract that with 2 drops that Aguilar had that would have been first downs. So that lack of consistency from that group is going to continue. It's just not good enough. So what you want from the quarterback is what you're getting from Sam Bradford right now. And by and large, he keeps improving from week to week. He keeps playing clean games, and I think that's been the difference for this team and this offense. It's not great, but this is as good as it's going to get.
John, Scott was on earlier. He had said that a lot of the defensive players told him that Bradford had stepped up vocally. It's something that they're noticing, that that he kind of feels like more comfortable and that he does need to be a more vocal voice in there. Do you sense that Bradford likes it here, that he wants to be back? Because as you said, he can walk at the end of the year if he wants. If he's becoming more vocal, it kind of says to me that he's becoming more comfortable.
Well, I think he's becoming more comfortable with his teammates. He's not a very vocal guy to begin with, so he's not the kind of rah-rah guy. He's more laid back, and I think that the comfort factor with the people and getting to know them, he's more comfortable speaking out in certain instances. If you're asking me whether he's comfortable with Philadelphia or comfortable with this offense, I would say no, but I think it leans more towards the offense itself. He understands he's not a fit, and he would rather be in a more traditional offense. Earlier in the season, he kind of alluded to the fact that his inability to audible at the line of scrimmage hurts at times. Even when they win games, winning cures everything, Mike. We all understand that. But there were times in that game where the 3-and-outs were cropping up again, and all of a sudden the Eagles have the football for 3 plays. 45 seconds later, they're punting the football. The defense is back on the field. So I don't think Sam Bradford's comfortable with that. I don't think Nick Foles was. I don't think Matt Barkley was. All those types of quarterbacks who were built to be in more of a traditional pro set are not necessarily comfortable in it, and I think Bradford's in that camp. However, because of the injury history, because there hasn't been a ton of success on his resume, I don't think people are going to be knocking down his door after the season. Cleveland's always on the horizon. They're going to move on from their coach, their general manager. They're going to move on from Johnny Manziel. They're going to need a quarterback. That's a possibility. But he hasn't wanted to go there. Other than that, there's not going to be tons of teams knocking down this door. So the Eagles will have every opportunity. If they want him back, they can get him back. And you're going to know everything about what Chip Kelly said by his actions.
Yeah.
And the fact that I firmly believe he's not going to bring him back.
I thought, the one play, and, he missed a couple throws, deep throws down the field, but the one play that I was really impressed with was not only the throw on the 53-yard pass to Aguilar, but he sidestepped a guy. He kind of stepped up into the pocket. And, number one, the fact that he completed the pass to Aguilar was almost unbelievable in itself. But I thought that was a play that maybe shows you what he still has to give.
Yeah, he's definitely more comfortable physically, and he's feeling a lot more confidence with his knee. And you see with that functional mobility, he's never going to be a guy who can run the zone read looks and take the 5-6 yards. But all you're looking for is that slide step in the pocket, as you mentioned, stepping up in the pocket, extending plays a little bit. And he's gotten better and better with that as the season has worn on. And that's directly related to the fact that it's now sort of in his mind that he's not going to get hurt again. And it's probably not going to happen. And as he gets more comfortable, that's only going to improve, and that bodes well for the Eagles in this season, because I think you've seen that incremental improvement. He's certainly a better player today than he was week 1, and a lot of that has to do with the mental hurdle he's finally overcoming from the injuries.
Let's go to Murray, John. Obviously, now there were some reports before the game that he was basically the 4th back. That didn't shake out that way. He had the 2nd most carries on the team. He chose not to talk or was not made available after the game. Is this a sign that Murray is now having some conflict between him and his own teammates? I got to imagine that there's some people unhappy with the way that he's handled things.
Yeah, players tend to be a little bit different than fans, though, and they understand the frustrations, and they kind of put it apart, whether it's contract related, whether it's playing time related. There's always going to be those little skirmishes, and they happen in every organization, not just here in Philadelphia. So I don't know if players take that as seriously as fans do. They understand DeMarco's not happy with the way things have worked out, and probably understand why. But we're now through 13 games. There's only 3 games left, and it's about winning this division. And right now, I think everyone recognizes the fact the Eagles are a better team with Darren Sproles running the football, Ryan Matthews, some might argue even Kenyon Barner. And that's a mighty fall for a guy who was the rushing champion, but that's the reality of the situation. And it's another example where he's just not a fit for this particular offense, and the Eagles are going to have to address it in the offseason. But that's work to do later down the line. Right now, they got to play who's performing best, and that's not DeMarco Murray. I thought he got more touches than he deserved, probably because of all the criticism.
Yeah, and why was that, though? I agree with you, John. So, what, did Kelly buckle under the pressure? I mean, to me,
I think he did.
I was going to say, but if that's going to be the case, I'm concerned down the stretch these last 3 games, if he starts gradually working Murray back into the offense, I think that goes against what you're saying about Bradford, meaning, hey, I got to keep my quarterback confidence because it's all about winning the NFC East. But at the same time, then I got to get rid of Murray.
Yeah, you would think, and I almost, you heard, I think Chip got a little rabbit ears, and he heard some of the stuff coming out and media reports about how he might even be inactive, how he wasn't going to play, how he's going to be the 4th running back. And to a certain degree, I think he wanted to stem that particular coming controversy, because one thing that has been a constant with this team, and it's frustrating, and I think it's frustrating to him, is it goes from controversy to controversy to controversy. It never stops with this organization. And I think at some point he's trying to stop it and focus on football, at least for 3 weeks. I don't know if it's working, but I think that was his attempt to try to sort of diffuse some of DeMarco Murray's unhappiness. I don't think it's going to work, but I think that was the attempt of what went on.
What was the, obviously you're up there yesterday, and I'm assuming that yesterday might have been one of the most highly anticipated inactive lists. Was there some legitimate thought that they would make him inactive?
No, there really wasn't. I think there was one report from the NFL Network that he was going to be the 4th running back, but even that indicated he was going to be active. So I don't think there was much to that. It doesn't make sense. People were saying that if you're going to make him the 4th running back and you're going to dress 4 running backs on game day, you almost have to be able to contribute on special teams in a normal circumstance. And obviously a player like Murray is not going to play on special teams. So it didn't make a lot of sense, and it didn't turn out to be that. He was one of the 3 in the rotation, and they didn't run the football great. Nobody did.
No, not yesterday.
Sproles was the best, and he got the least amount of carries. Matthews finally back, but he didn't run it all that well. And DeMarco, as usual, didn't run it all that well. So I think it's going to be a struggle moving forward. I just don't think this offense is very good, and I think it's more than anything else, it's talent-driven. The offensive line's not that good. We always talk about how bad the wide receivers are. I think Bradford, in that when you go back to him, I think he's performing tremendously over his past number of games because he just doesn't have that much around him.
John, defensively, this team has tightened it up, specifically yesterday. Last week against New England, they were okay, not great, but yesterday they played really well. 3 guys who really stood out. Cox has just been unbelievable. 1, I thought Rowe played really well yesterday. 2, Kendricks, I actually thought played well yesterday. But, Reynolds, here's a kid who, much like Rowe, wasn't even active, wasn't even on the team, and turns out to make a really big play. Could some of the changes on defense that they had to have made out of necessity end up in the end, maybe saving them?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Reynolds move, and I'm amazed they didn't make it sooner, because if you go back to the preseason, he had a really good preseason. If you go back to his college career at Stanford, he was just a playmaker. He's got great ball skills. And I think when it became clear that the nickel situation was going to have Malcolm Jenkins moving down to the slot, I think he would have been a better choice than Chris Maragos, although Maragos played pretty well for an extended period of time. But the thing I love about Reynolds, and it makes sense because he's a Stanford kid, as I said, he got beat on that exact same pattern early in the game on the Watkins touchdown. He was supposed to give help over the top. He took a bad angle. He got there late. I know everybody's going to blame Byron Maxwell because they don't like him, but that was Ed Reynolds' fault. And they ran the same play about 5 times. And the last time, he was there. He was Johnny on the spot. He got there. He understood he made a mistake, and he learned from it. And that's what you want from young players. Everybody makes a mistake. You just don't want them making the same mistake over and over again. So I thought that was a huge step forward for him in his career. And you know, Fletcher Cox obviously is on a different level. I mean, he's, other than J.J. Watt, I better 5 technique in football. And Rex Ryan was gushing about it. He joked when people heard Jerome Brown, and he was saying he's not laughing anymore. And I'll go one better. I know people don't. Fletcher Cox is a better player than Jerome Brown ever was.
Wow.
That's how good he is as a football player. He is the second best 5 technique in professional football. Jerome Brown, despite, and we all understand, and God rest his soul, and the tragedy that happened, but a lot of that kind of overestimates what he was at the time. He was never related to where Fletcher Cox is in his career right now. That's how dominant he's playing football right now, and he's the best player on the Eagles.
Strong comments, John McMullen over ESPN.com. How much do you think over the last couple of weeks, all the criticism and the negativity, and Kelly's got to go, and Malcolm Jenkins coming out, and you know, all of this stuff has actually helped this team?
I don't know if it helped. I just think the defense got a second win more than anything else. I really believe that's what's going on. I think that's for this team. I think it has been the strength since day one. They had a couple of really, really bad weeks, and they dug deep down, and they looked at themselves, and they realized that we're better than this, and they've sort of come out and played like it the last 2 weeks. I still think a lot of the same issues exist. You can't just sweep them under the rug because there's been a couple of wins. And I bring out this quick 3 and outs. I think at times this offense really puts this defense behind the 8 ball. I think that's going to continue because obviously Chip Kelly's not going to change. And for that particular reason, I don't know if this group is ever going to be as consistent as it could be. But when you look at individual components, we just talked about, you bring up Malcolm Jenkins. He's been one of the most versatile players in football this year. His ability to play safety at an all-pro level, his ability to play the slot at an all-pro level. He's been a top 2 or 3 safety this entire season. Walter Thurman has been great. For all the criticism Chip Kelly has gotten with certain free agent maneuvers, people overlooked that one because that was a great one. And that has worked out. And Eric Rowe, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I thought people were way too hard. Talked about this with Pete when you were gone, when he got beat by Calvin Johnson. I think some people are myopic in this town. They don't realize Eric Rowe had great coverage on a Hall of Fame receiver, not alternate, one of the best receivers who ever lived. It was a perfect throw. It was a great catch. And sometimes you tip your hat to the other team. Eric Rowe, to me, has been tremendous since he's come in and been the starting quarterback, and I think that's a great step forward for the Eagles.
Yeah, and as you know, I've said before, I think it's a crime that they didn't give him more opportunity to play throughout the course of this year. And, you know, we'll see what happens. This is a tough Arizona game, but quite frankly, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, John. they don't really need to win this game. I think it's going to come down to the last two NFC East games. So this game here is kind of gravy. And I said this before, the team that pulls off an upset will be the team that wins the division. Well, the Eagles already upset New England. I think if they upset Arizona, then that pretty much will, they only need to really win one of the last two then. If they can upset Arizona, they probably need to split down the stretch. If they lose to Arizona, they're probably going to have to win out.
Yeah, and tonight is really key because if the Giants can get it done tonight against Miami, I think it's coming down to Week 17 and the Eagles-Giants. Because remember, the Giants are playing Carolina next week. So even if I agree with you, I don't think the Eagles are going to beat the Cardinals. I don't think they can beat the Cardinals, but it's not going to matter. The Giants are going to beat the Panthers. And it's going to come down to Week 17. The one hiccup is Washington. They finally got a win on the road, and that was so big for them. And they have Buffalo. So even though that's a difficult team, the Eagles know that. They got it done this week. It's a lot easier than Arizona. It's a lot easier than Carolina. So the Redskins might be the bigger concern right now.
All right, we got plenty more on the NFC East tomorrow. John and I are live at the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City with 4 hours of NFL conversation as the playoffs are shaping up. We'll have who's in and who's out at 3:30. All right, man, I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, John McMullen, everybody. He'll be back on Tuesday's show.